He never blinked. Not once. The train roared into the tunnel like a mouth swallowing us whole, and his eyes stayed on me as if blinking would mean losing something he needed. It was close to midnight, the kind of hour when even the city seems to pause and take a thin, nervous breath. I'd stayed late at work, a double shift, muscles buzzing with stale coffee and fluorescent light. The car was almost empty, 2 dozing figures near the back, a teenager with headphones wound tight, and me. I sat in the middle, clutching my tote like it could vouch for me. He sat 3 rows down. Trench coat, sleeves too long, collar up like a curtain that never quite closed. His eyes were wide and wet, reflecting the carriage lights. I told myself he was tired, or high, or sick. I told myself a dozen reasonable things, because reasonable things keep you from standing up and running. The first stop shuddered into view, a small hiss and a ding. Doors slid open, then shut. He stood as they opened, moved 1 row closer, sat again. Never looked away. My chest tightened like a fist around my ribs. Don't engage, I thought. Don't feed it. Keep your gaze soft, like you're looking past him, like you never learned what fear is. The car lurched forward. He didn't. Not even the sway of the train moved him. When the second stop came, he stood again. 1 step, a slow turn of his shoes, then another row closer. He was patterned motion, ritualistic. The sound of his coat brushing his legs was soft, like paper dragged across a table. I tried to distract myself. Count the advertisements above the windows. Read the peeling safety sticker. Think about the pizza in my fridge. Any thought except the obvious one. He's measuring the distance between you. We pulled into the next station and I made my move. As the chimes sounded, I scooped my tote and stepped off the car with the polite urgency of someone who just remembered their stop. The platform air was colder, sharp with metallic grit. I slipped through the open doors of the next car, heart battering my throat. The doors closed behind me with a hiss that felt like a blessing. The new car was emptier, only a tired couple and a man in a baseball cap half asleep. I sat near the door so I could watch the window between cars. The wheels pulled us back into blackness, the tunnel skinning past in strips of shadow. He appeared in the window like a negative. Coat first, then shoulders, then those eyes backing the glass. He didn't rush. He didn't even test the handle. He just stood there in the seam where one car becomes another, the place nobody looks because it belongs to the train, not to us. I thought about pressing the emergency intercom, but the idea of speaking his presence into the world felt like giving him permission. Instead, I wrapped the tote strap tighter around my wrist, as if it could anchor me to the seat. My mouth was dry. My hands were damp. The contrast made no sense, and that made it worse. We rattled toward the next station. He stayed. When we slowed, he disappeared from the window. Relief rose up quick and foolish, until the doors opened and he stepped into my car. 1 row closer. Same seat. Same posture. Our reflections slid across the window like we'd been sketched together. Don't look, I told myself. Don't look, don't look. I looked. His eyes were glassy, fishbowl big. He didn't blink. The train rolled out. We barely made it into the tunnel before the lights flickered, dimmed, then held at that sickly emergency hue that turns everyone into a ghost. The car sighed and went still. Somewhere up ahead, a brake squealed like a scream dragged through metal. The silence after was thick and electric. The tired couple whispered to each other. The man in the cap removed it, wiped his forehead, put it back on. I stared at the emergency instructions, reading the words without meaning. Remain calm. Do not attempt to exit. Await further information. He stood. It wasn't abrupt. It was the kind of stand that feels like water rising. He slid one hand inside his coat, very slowly. I could hear my pulse in my ears, sticky and loud. I stood too, because sitting felt like offering my throat. Don't come closer, I said. My voice sounded like someone else's, calm, reasonable, like I was handling a customer complaint. Stay where you are. He brought something out of his coat. It caught the pallid light and winked. I thought of a blade, a badge, a photograph, a mirror. I thought of all of them at once. He tilted his head as if studying a display. You look just like her, he said. Not to me. About me. He was explaining me to the air. His voice was gentle. That made it worse. Like who? The words were gravel. I held my ground. My knees wanted to quit. He smiled the way people smile when they're remembering something they don't want to share. The car around us seemed to slide out of focus, as if we'd stepped inside the sharp breath between shutter clicks. He moved. The code opened. The thing in his hand flashed. The air tilted. Hey! The man in the cap half stood but got tangled in the strap of his bag. The couple froze, eyes wide and useless. I wasn't thinking anymore. Thinking had left the station. I grabbed the emergency call box, slammed at the glass with my elbow. It didn't break. I felt the vibration punch through bone. He lunged. Choppy. Sound bled out of the world. I hit the box again. Harder. Glass cracked in a spider web. It shattered. The shard bit my skin and hot wet slicked my wrist. I fumbled for the button. Help, I gasped. Stolthief man with. The mic swallowed my words, turned them into tin. He was close enough that I could see the sucked-in crescent of scar on his cheek. Close enough to smell something sweet and stale, like old perfume soaked into wool. The shiny thing rose. My body chose for me. I threw my toad at his face and shoved off the door, trying to make space that didn't exist. The train jerked with a single, miraculous lurch. Lights flashed. The PA crackled. Remain in your seats. We're moving. The doors between cars breathed out a wedge of cold air. Instinct took him sideways, toward the seam, toward that forbidden slice of the train that eats people. Stop, I said, stupidly, like this was a conversation that had rules. He turned his head, and in the stuttering light I saw the shiny thing clearly. A photograph. It was creased and silvered with age, laminated with cheap tape, hole-punched in the corner like it once hung from a key ring. A woman stared out, eyes too familiar. My mouth went dry again in the exact same way. He held it up next to my face, like we were being compared. You look just like her, he repeated, almost tender. The train shuddered to a stop between stations. The doors to the next car hissed. In that thin breath of movement, he slipped through the seam. Shoulder ice. Gone. I stood there, my elbow bleeding, the emergency glass glittering at my feet. The conductor pounded up the aisle a minute later, chest heaving, eyes scanning. I pointed at the doors between cars, the way a kid points at a monster under the bed. He went, my voice shook itself apart. They searched. They didn't find him. They didn't find anyone moving between cars, no one on the next platform, no one matching my description on any of the cameras. Just me and my cut elbow and the recorded announcement repeating, We apologize for the delay. When we finally rolled into the station, the platform smelled like wet concrete and relief. I let the crowd carry me up the steps and out. The city opened like a mouth that had just learned how to breathe again. I don't take the last train anymore. I aim for crowds, for noise, for the comfort of people pressed too close. I sit with my back to the wall and keep my eyes on my shoes. But sometimes the glass in the window gives me back my reflection, and for a split second I'm sure I'm looking at someone else. Someone he knew. Someone he lost. Someone he's still riding for, car to car, tunnel to tunnel, practicing the moment he recognizes her again. And sometimes, in that reflection, I swear I see myself forget to blink. The motel room key. The front desk swore no one had checked into room 12 for years. That should have been enough for me to leave. But it wasn't. I was halfway through a cross-country drive, hours past exhaustion, the desert night pressing in on all sides. When I spotted the glowing vacancy sign, flickering like a dying insect, I pulled off without thinking. I just wanted a shower. A bed. Quiet. Inside, the lobby smelled like warm dust and old air freshener. The clerk was a thin man with a sunken face, skin stretched tight like paper. He barely looked up from his magazine when I asked for a room. "Only got one left," he said. Then he hesitated. His hand hovered over the key rack, fingers twitching. "Room 12, he murmured, not quite meeting my eyes. "We don't usually use that one." "Why not?" I asked, forcing a tired laugh. He blinked slow, like he was thinking whether to answer. Then he just said, "It's clean," and slid the brass key across the counter. It was cold, almost wet. The motel stretched out in a crooked L, all peeling paint and buzzing yellow lights. Room 12 sat at the far corner, apart from the others, as if it had been pushed there on purpose. The door stuck when I tried the key, then gave with a dull thud, like it had been sealed shut. The air hit me first. Sharp bleach stung my nose, but beneath it lurked something sweet and spoiled, like fruit left too long in a hot car. I told myself it was cleaning chemicals. Desert heat. Anything that wasn't what it felt like, something hidden under the smell. I set my bag on the sagging mattress. The springs groaned. The only window was crusted with grime, the curtains stiff with old smoke. The room was silent. Not peacefully silent, empty silent. The kind that hums in your teeth. I peeled off my shoes, desperate to lie down when I heard it. A soft, hollow knock. 3 beats. From the closet. I froze, listening. Nothing. My heart felt like it had moved into my throat. I crept to the closet and yanked it open. Empty. Just a plastic hanger swinging lazily, the air inside cold and still. I laughed under my breath, sharp and shaky. "Desert rats," I muttered. "What creaks? Pipes settle." Talking made it feel like a joke. I closed the door, locked the main door and killed the lights. Sleep came in pieces. I remember drifting, sinking, the hum of the air conditioner fading into nothing. But I was awake. Completely. The room was dark. Too dark. My eyes stung trying to adjust. Something was wrong, though I couldn't name it at first. My chest felt tight. Then I saw it. The closet door was open. Just an inch. A black seam in the shadows. I know, absolutely know, I closed it. My fingers shook as I reached for the bedside lamp, but the bulb only flickered weakly and died, plunging me back into thick dark. The air felt heavier, colder, like something had entered and shut the door behind it. Then I heard water. Drip, drip, drip. Slow and patient, soaking into the carpet. A shape stood in the closet doorway. Still soaked. Her hair hung in slick ropes, dripping onto the floor, each drop landing with a dull thud. Her skin gleamed wet in the faint streetlight sneaking through the curtain. She didn't blink, didn't breathe. She moved, not what's told. Her elbows bent wrong, shoulders jerking with each lurch forward. Wet hair slapped against the carpet. Her voice came low and shredded, like it was dragging through water. "Give it back." My mouth was dust. My body wouldn't move. She crept closer, water smearing the carpet in a dark trail. Her eyes, they weren't just empty. They were wrong. Like holes punched through her skull, no bottom, no light. "Give it back," she hissed again. Something slid across the nightstand. I watched the brass key lift, tremble, and slip over the edge without a sound. It hit the floor, spun once, and disappeared under her crawling shape, swallowed by the dark. That broke me. I ran. I don't remember grabbing my bag. I don't remember unlocking the door. 1 second I was in that room, the next I was outside, barefoot on cracked pavement, the cold desert air knifing my lungs. My breath came ragged and loud, the sound too big, like it might draw her out. The office was dark. No clerk. No lights. Just that flickering vacancy sign spitting sparks into the night. I didn't look back. I threw myself into my car, jammed the keys into the ignition with shaking hands. The headlights cut through nothing, just pale sand and scrub and endless road. I drove until the sky lightened, until the sun came up like it was dragging me back into the world. When I stopped at a diner miles away, I checked my bag. The motel key wasn't there. My shoes weren't either. I tell myself I was exhausted, hallucinating. The mind does strange things when it's sleep-starved. That's what I say out loud. But when I picture her, crouched in the doorway, dripping that dark trail toward me, it doesn't feel like a dream. It feels like someone who'd been waiting. And sometimes, when I pull off the highway at night, bone-tired and desperate, I see the same kind of motel ahead, dim lights, peeling paint, doors lined up like crooked teeth. I sleep in my car now, because somewhere, room 12 is still waiting for its key to come back. The hitchhiker. He smiled when I passed him on the highway, and he was still smiling when I found him in my back seat. It was close to 2 a.m. when it happened. The kind of deep night where even time feels tired. I was cutting through rural Montana on my way back from visiting my sister, pushing through the darkness just to shave a few hours off the drive. The highway stretched endlessly in both directions, flat black asphalt dissolving into nothing. My headlights were the only thing alive out there. I hadn't seen another car for almost an hour when I spotted him. A figure standing alone under a flickering streetlight, one of those tall skeletal ones they stick near intersections that lead to nowhere. He was perfectly still, facing the road, facing me, and smiling. It wasn't just a normal smile. It was stretched too far, too fixed, like someone holding a pose long after the photo's been taken. The light flickered, sputtered, and for half a second it looked like his mouth twitched wider. I pressed the gas harder. My tires hummed louder. My hands tightened around the wheel. A few miles later, I noticed the air. It got cold. Not like roll down the window cold, like winter just opened its mouth inside my car. My arms prickled with goosebumps. The temperature display still read 67. I reached for the heater, trying not to think about him, about the streetlight behind me shrinking in the mirror. Then the smell hit. Wet dirt. Like a flooded basement that had been locked up for decades. It coated the back of my throat. The radio cut out mid-song with a burst of static, then hissed back to life, the voice warbling slow and low like it was melting. I told myself it was nothing. A dead animal on the roadside. Faulty wiring. Fatigue. Except the windows were closed. And the smell was coming from inside. I checked the rear view. And froze. He was there. In the back seat. Sitting dead center, his grin still glued to his face. Moonlight from the side window lit him pale as paper. His clothes hung soaked and heavy, dripping onto the upholstery that should have crunched under my grocery bags. But the bags were gone. His eyes locked on mine in the mirror, wide and unblinking, pupils too small. Like a cat about to pounce. My brain stuttered. Fight or flee or freeze. My foot eased off the gas without me thinking about it. My hands went slick on the wheel. I didn't breathe. Then he spoke. He whispered my name. Just my name. So precise. I hadn't said it aloud all night. I hadn't spoken to anyone for hours. Something inside me shrank. My tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. I tried to say, "Who are you?" but it came out like a cracked breath. His grin shifted, widened. The skin at the corners of his mouth tore with a sound like wet paper splitting. Dark threads stretched and snapped. Teeth flashed, too many, too sharp, lining his mouth all the way back. He lunged. Everything fractured into sharp, frantic pieces. Cold hands clamped around my throat. The wheel jerked sideways. The car screamed. Headlights blurred into spinning streaks. My chest crushed against the seatbelt. My foot slammed the brake. Tires shrieked. We left the road. The world tilted. Glass shattered. I wasn't thinking anymore, only moving. I clawed the door open and threw myself out as the car slammed nose first into the ditch. My shoulder hit frozen ground. Breath tore from my lungs like broken glass. The car groaned. Steam hissed from the crumpled hood. The radio sputtered one last burst of static and died. Silence. I crawled up onto my elbows, coughing dirt. My whole body buzzed, trembling with leftover adrenaline. The passenger door creaked in the wind, swinging gently, like something had just slipped out. I turned. The back seat was empty. No soaked man. No smell. Just shards of safety glass glittering in the grass like ice. And footprints. Muddy ones. Leading from the car door back toward the highway. I watched them fade as I stared, like watermarks evaporating under invisible heat. The air stayed bitter cold until the last one disappeared. Then it was just night again. Heavy and hollow. It took me half an hour to convince my hands to stop shaking enough to dial 911. By the time a tow truck arrived, the sky had started paling at the edges. The driver asked what happened. I said I swerved to miss a deer. He nodded. I nodded. We didn't look at the back seat. The sheriff who gave me a ride into town kept glancing at me in the mirror like he wanted to ask more. He didn't. I didn't offer. Because I didn't know how to explain it in a way that wouldn't sound like madness. How do you tell someone a stranger smiled his way into your car without opening a door? How do you explain that he knew your name? My car was totaled. Insurance called it driver fatigue. That's what I tell people too. It's easier. It makes sense. But I know what I saw. What I smelled. What whispered my name from behind my own headrest. I don't drive at night anymore. And when I'm forced to, I keep the rearview mirror tilted down. Because part of me is terrified it won't show the road. It'll show him. Smiling. The forest screamer. The scream didn't sound human, but it came from just ahead on the trail. I went into the forest to be alone. No reception. No people. No noise except the sound of my own boots on dirt. That was the plan. I wanted to test out my new gear, sleep under the stars, and prove to myself that I could do it. Just me and the quiet. But the quiet wasn't what I expected. It wasn't peaceful. It was absolute. No birds. No buzzing. No wind hissing through pine needles. Just the crunch of my footsteps, so loud they felt rude, like I was intruding on something that had stopped breathing to watch me. By late afternoon, the light had gone gold and thin. I was miles off trail in dense Oregon forest, where the trees knit together so tight they seemed to swallow the sky. I'd seen no one since morning, which had felt freeing at first. Now, it just felt like the world had emptied out. That's when I heard it. Help. It came faint from far off. My name. Then, help me. It sounded exactly like my own voice. I froze mid-step. My throat locked. The words echoed strangely, like the trees caught them and bounced them back in pieces. I told myself it was wind. A bird call warped by distance. Anything but what it sounded like. I waited, holding my breath, but nothing followed. I should have turned back. Instead, I called out, "Hello? Is someone there?" No answer. Just the soft creak of the forest settling back down around me, pretending nothing had spoken. I checked my phone's compass to get my bearings. It spun. No slow rotation, no drifting. Just wild circles, jittering like it was trying to shake something off. The GPS showed me floating in blank space. No trail, no coordinates. I turned in a slow circle, looking for the last marker I passed, the little orange tag stapled to a pine. It was gone. They were all gone. Just black bark trunks, silent and still, watching. "Okay," I whispered to prove I still existed. My breath puffed in the cooling air. The light drained faster than it should have. One moment it was late afternoon, the next it felt like dusk. Shadows stretched long, swallowing the spaces between the trees. I reached for my headlamp. My fingers shook. That's when something moved. Far ahead, between the trunks, something huge. Too tall. It slid from one tree to the next, slow and deliberate, like it didn't need to hurry. Branches bowed as it passed. The air tightened. My skin crawled cold. I couldn't see its shape clearly, only the gaps it left. Like it erased pieces of the forest as it moved through it. I backed up a step. My pack straps dug into my shoulders. I couldn't hear my own breathing anymore over the blood pounding in my ears. Then it screamed. It ripped through the trees like steel tearing. High-pitched and hollow, full of static and something wet at the edges. I clamped my hands over my ears. My knees buckled. It stepped into the clearing. 8 feet tall. Arms too long, dragging grooves into the dirt. Its skin was stretched smooth and gray, featureless where a face should have been. And lining its forearms, from wrist to elbow, were rows of human teeth. It stopped, tilted its head as if listening. Then in my voice, perfect and broken, "Help me." Something inside me broke. It dropped to all fours with a crack of bone. And ran. Faster than anything that size should move. Screaming again, that sound like a building collapsing underwater. The ground shook. I grabbed my stove fuel from my pack, yanked the lighter from my pocket with numb hands. My body acted on something deeper than thought. I flicked the lighter. Flame burst. I hurled the canister at its feet and dropped the lighter after it. A whoosh of fire tore up between us. The heat slapped my face. It reared back, shrieking, claws carving trenches in the earth. I ran. Branches tore at my arms. My pack slammed my spine with each step. The firelight behind me died fast, swallowed by blackness. I ran blind. No trail. No sense of direction. Only away. I don't remember falling. I don't remember when the screaming stopped. The next thing I remember is gray light seeping between trees and the sound of distant tires on gravel. A ranger road. I stumbled onto it at dawn, collapsed face first in the dust. My clothes were shredded. My arms were covered in scratches. My watch said 6:42 a.m., but my phone battery was dead and its clock said 2:03. I had lost hours. They found my campsite days later, gear scattered in a ring around blackened dirt. My stove fuel was gone. So was my headlamp. No tracks. No animal signs. No explanation. They told me it was exhaustion. A panic attack. Maybe a mountain lion, though they couldn't say why I hadn't been attacked. I nodded. I let them believe it. Because how do you tell someone the forest itself opened its mouth and screamed at you with your own voice? How do you make them understand that silence can mean something is listening? I still hike. But I stay on the trail now. I never go alone. And when the woods go silent, I leave. Because silence isn't peace anymore. It's warning. The babysitter. The baby monitor showed someone standing over her crib, but I was the only one in the house. I thought babysitting for a rich family would be easy money. Their house sat at the edge of town, tucked back behind tall hedges and iron gates. It was the kind of house that made you lower your voice without realizing it. Polished wood floors, cold marble counters, echoing hallways that swallowed sound. They gave me a quick tour before leaving. The nursery upstairs, kitchen downstairs, cameras on every entrance. The mom pressed the baby monitor into my hand and smiled, but her eyes lingered on mine for a second too long. "One thing," she said, almost as an afterthought. "Please don't remove the sheets from the mirrors." I blinked. "The mirrors? You'll see," she said, and then they were gone. She was right. Every mirror in the house, hallway, bedrooms, even the guest bathroom, was covered with heavy white cloth, tacked down like they were hiding something. I told myself it was some kind of weird superstition. Feng shui, or grief, or rich people being eccentric. But it made the house feel unfinished. Blinded. The baby slept soundly, breathing soft and rhythmic through the monitor speaker. I settled on the couch, the monitor propped beside me, blue light casting a faint glow. The whole place was silent except for the soft hiss of the baby's white noise machine upstairs. Too silent. Even the old house creaks seemed to be holding their breath. The monitor glitched first. Static swallowed the image, sharp and white, crackling in my ear like a burst of electricity. I leaned forward. It cleared for half a second, just an empty crib, then blacked out entirely. "Great," I muttered. "Come on, don't do this." I tapped it. The screen stayed black. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Upstairs. I froze, head tilted. The baby's sound machine was still going, soft ocean waves, steady and calm. But underneath it, footfalls, pacing from one end of the nursery to the other. I told myself it was the house settling. That's what old houses do, right? They creak, they pop, they pretend they're alive. But the sound was too clean, too measured, like someone walking in circles. I grabbed my phone, thumb hovering over 911, when the monitor flickered back on. Not static, not black. The nursery. And someone was leaning over the crib. Motionless. Head bowed. I couldn't see its face. My body moved before my brain could. I dropped the monitor, vaulted off the couch, and sprinted for the stairs, heart hammering so hard it blurred the edges of my vision. The stairwell swallowed my footfalls, each step louder than the last. "Please, please," I whispered. I didn't know if I was begging the baby to be safe or begging reality to hold. I hit the nursery door. The crib was empty. The mobile above it spun lazily, though the air was still. The sound machine played on, hollow waves rolling over nothing. Then the door slammed. The handle bit my palm as I whipped around, yanking, but it didn't move. Something shifted in the corner. The sheet over the tall standing mirror quivered, then peeled itself away like it was being lifted from behind. My breath snagged. A hand pushed through the mirror. Long bone pale. Jointed wrong. Then the rest of it crawled out. It unfolded on all fours like a spider straightening its legs. Its body was too long, too thin, draped in something black that sucked the light from the room. It had no face. Just a smooth surface where a face should be, reflecting the room like dark glass. And cradled against its chest was the baby. Silent. Eyes open. My lungs stopped working. It turned that blank head toward me. Its voice was soft, almost tender, like a lullaby sinking underwater. She's mine. Something in me snapped. I lunged. My shoulders slammed the mirror's frame. My hands closed on the baby's blanket, pulling hard. Its grip was cold. Not just cold, empty, like plunging your arm into a void. Pins and needles stabbed up my arms as if my blood had gone thin. She's mine. It hissed again, louder, deeper, like the whole room was speaking. No! My voice broke. I tore the baby free. It shrieked, not loud, but piercing, like glass cracking inside my skull. The mirror behind it shattered. I ran. Door unlocked. Handle turned beneath my hand like it had never stuck at all. I bolted down the stairs barefoot, clutching her tight to my chest. She didn't cry. Not once. Just blinked up at me, calm, like she knew something I didn't. I didn't stop running until the night air hit my face. I stood in the driveway, shaking so hard my teeth clicked. The house loomed behind me, windows dark, mirrorless eyes watching. The baby finally whimpered. That tiny, real sound broke whatever was left of me. I sank to the pavement and sobbed. The parents came home an hour later to find us there. They didn't ask why I was outside. They didn't ask why the mirror was shattered or why every sheet had been torn down by the windless air. The mother just picked up her baby, kissed her forehead, and said, "She didn't cry, did she?" I shook my head. "Good," she said, and smiled like it was over. It wasn't. I don't babysit anymore. And I can't look in mirrors at night. I cover them too. Because sometimes when the room goes still enough, I swear I see the sheet twitch. Like something behind the glass is still waiting to crawl out. The gas station man. He knew what was in my trunk. And I hadn't told anyone. It was almost 3 a.m. when I pulled into the gas station. You know the kind I mean, just a flickering sign on the side of a forgotten highway, one pump, one dim office glowing like a dying firefly. I was halfway through a 6-hour drive back from college, running on burnt coffee and static radio. The air was sharp with cold, the kind that bites through your clothes and makes sound feel thinner. Gravel crunched under my tires as I rolled up to the pump. There wasn't another soul around. Just the hum of the fluorescent lights and the hollow echo of my own footsteps on concrete. I should have kept driving. But the needle hovered below empty, and the darkness felt endless. When I stepped inside to pay, the attendant was staring at my car. Not casually. Not bored. Locked in. His face was gray with stubble, eyes glassy under the buzzing light. He didn't look at me when I cleared my throat, just kept watching the rear of my car through the grimy window. "Evening," I offered, trying to sound normal. His lips parted just slightly. Then, still watching the car, he said, "Is she still breathing back there?" I laughed. Or maybe it was just air catching in my throat. "What?" Only then did his eyes shift to mine. Slow, deliberate. "Is she still breathing?" he said again, softer this time. "In your trunk?" My skin went cold. There are moments when your body decides before your brain can. Mine went perfectly still. Heart slow. Muscles locked. Like prey. I forced my voice steady. "I'm alone." Something like a smile tugged at his mouth, crooked and unfinished. He rang me up without speaking again. Every beep of the register was painfully loud in the silence. I slid my card, signed with a trembling hand, and left without waiting for the receipt. The air outside felt heavier, like it had thickened while I was gone. I kept my eyes down, just focused on getting back into the driver's seat. The door creaked too loud as I closed it. My breath fogged the windshield. Through the glass, I saw him still watching from inside, face pale in the buzzing light. As I started the engine, I heard him. Muffled but clear. "She's awake now." At first, I thought I'd imagined it. The engine's rumble. The old building settling. A leftover echo from my nerves. I pulled away from the pump. Gravel hissed under the tires. The road opened ahead, black and endless. Then the car jolted. Like something slammed against it from inside. I gripped the wheel. Eyes flicked to the mirror. Just the dim glow of my taillights bouncing off the road. Then again. From the trunk. The sound came again, faster, violent. Thud. The whole back end shuddered with each blow. My mouth went dry. My foot eased off the gas without thinking. Something inside screamed. Human. I swerved, tires squealing. No. My voice cracked. I didn't know who I was talking to. The screaming rose, ragged and real. The trunk lid jumped with each hit from underneath, the metal warping slightly like it was breathing. The lock popped. By itself. The trunk sprang open. Cold air blasted through the cabin. I saw her in the mirror for half a second as she burst upright. A woman. Soaked. Mud-streaked. Hair plastered to her face. Eyes wide, wild, mouth torn open in a silent scream as she launched out of the trunk and into the night. She hit the asphalt running barefoot. And vanished into the dark. Gone. The trunk yawned open behind me as I slammed the brakes. The car skidded to a crooked stop in the middle of nowhere. My hands clutched the wheel like it was the only solid thing left on earth. Silence. The road stretched empty in both directions. I climbed out on shaking legs, the cold cutting deep. The trunk was empty. Just the spare tire and the blanket I kept there. Undisturbed. No footprints. No blood. No sign of her at all. My hands shook so hard I dropped my phone twice before I could call 911. The police found nothing. No sign of forced entry on the trunk. No fingerprints but mine. They didn't even find the attendant. They said the station had been closed for years. The pumps were dry. The building padlocked. But I know what I saw. What I heard. What climbed out of my trunk and ran screaming into the black. I don't drive long distances anymore. I can't. Every bump in the road makes my heart race. Every creak of the suspension sounds like a fist from inside the trunk. And sometimes, when I walk past the back of my car at night, the metal feels faintly warm. Like something inside has just finished breathing. The apartment above me. No one had lived upstairs for years. But I heard them dragging something heavy every night. After my breakup, I moved into the first place I could afford. It was a squat, peeling old building wedged between a boarded-up laundromat and a pawn shop that never seemed open. The kind of place that always smells faintly like mildew and old cooking oil, where the paint on the stairs comes off on your shoes. The landlord handed me the keys on the sidewalk without ever taking off his sunglasses. He said, "Don't worry about noise. The upstairs unit's been condemned for years. No one up there to bother you." I laughed because it sounded like reassurance. But now it feels like a warning I didn't understand. For the first 2 weeks, it was fine. Only quiet. Too quiet sometimes. But after the chaos of the breakup, that felt like relief. I slept with the window cracked, listening to the occasional car hissing past on the street below. Then one night around midnight, I woke to a dull thump overhead. I lay still, staring at the cracked ceiling. Another thump, heavier this time. Then a long dragging sound, like something large being pulled across the floor above me. I sat up, heart thudding, reminding myself, the landlord said it was empty. Condemned. But something heavy was up there, moving. It happened again the next night. Midnight sharp. Thump, 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 thump. Slow, steady, patient. Like a routine. I banged on the ceiling with a broom handle. The sound stopped. Silence swelled, thick and complete. Then, just as I lowered the broom, thump. Closer this time. I didn't sleep. I told myself it was pipes. Settling wood. Stray cats in the crawl space. Any explanation that didn't involve footsteps from an apartment that didn't exist anymore. A week later, I woke to a new sound. Dripping. I flicked on the lamp. A dark stain had bloomed on the ceiling above my bed, the plaster sagging slightly. A droplet formed, fell onto my nightstand. It wasn't water. It was thick. The smell hit a second later, metallic and sour, like rusted coins or a nosebleed. Iron. I gagged, pressing my shirt to my nose. When I touched the droplet with a tissue, it smeared deep red. I called the landlord the next morning, voice shaking. "There's something leaking from upstairs," I said. "It smells like blood." He was quiet for a long time. Then, that unit sealed. You leave it alone, it leaves you alone. And he hung up. That night, I woke choking on the smell. It was everywhere now, seeping from the ceiling, coating the room in that sharp, copper tang. And there was a new sound. Breathing. Not mine. Slow. Heavy. Just above me. I rolled over to reach for my phone. Something warm splashed my cheek. I froze. Then another drop landed on my pillow. Fresh. I didn't think. I just moved. I grabbed my keys and bolted out the door barefoot, the stairwell freezing under my feet. At the landing, I stopped. The door to the condemned unit stood ajar. It was supposed to be locked. A strip of old caution tape fluttered limply on the frame, torn. I should have kept running. Instead, I pushed it open. The air inside hit me like a fist. Rotting. The smell of old meat and something sweet gone wrong. The walls were bare plaster, streaked dark from ceiling to floor like the whole place had been bled. The boards sagged under my weight, squelching faintly. The dragging sound came again. From the far corner. I turned. Something crouched there. It was small. Thin. Bent in on itself like a broken insect. Its skin was the color of wet paper, stretched tight over bones that seemed too sharp to fit inside. It was gnawing on something. A long, white shape clutched in its claws. A femur. It stopped chewing. Lifted its head. Its mouth was red to the ears. Grinned. Then it spoke. Its voice was dry, flaking like old paint. "Your turn," it whispered. It tilted its head toward the floor. "Downstairs." I ran. No plan, no thought, just pure animal terror. The door banged the wall as I tore through it, down the stairs 2 at a time, the sound of my own breath drowning everything else. I slammed into my apartment, grabbed my wallet, and didn't even shut the door behind me. I drove barefoot with the windows down until the sky turned pale. I didn't go back. A week later, I came to get my stuff. The door to my unit was gone. So was the one upstairs. That whole section of the building had been bricked up, like it had never existed at all. No explanation. No apology. Just blank wall where I had lived. I can't live below anyone now. Every creak in the ceiling sets my teeth on edge. Because I know what it sounds like when something is being dragged. Slow and patient. Waiting for its turn.